Some of us like reading books and some of us don't. There are some good ones out there, whether they be chapter books, picture books, comic books, or whatever. But what if I told you there was a horror game about books? I always knew there was something wrong with them. Like the last game I talked about, Aria's Story is an adventure puzzle horror game made with RPG Maker. In this game, you follow Aria, a girl who loves to read books. It all starts with her going to a library that she loves visiting. And then she'll walk around. I tried this game out once before, but I got stuck and kinda just gave up on it. But not this time. I will actually complete it this time. So after some exploring, she talks to the librarian who recommends some books he thinks she might be interested in. He points her in the direction of a specific bookshelf where she finds a book that doesn't have a title. When she sits down to read it, she ends up passing out and waking up after the library closed. Or so it seems. Aria tries to head out, but the door to the library is locked, so she advance borrows the key, which sadly doesn't work. To get out of this area, she finds a secret passage behind a bookshelf. She walks around some more and ends up in an area with multiple bookshelves, where she finds one on the wrong shelf, so she decides to put it back where it goes. And that's how she finds out that the books in whatever world she's in can talk.
Out of this house! Out of this house!
The books decide to help her out and make a bridge for her to cross. Apparently, books are into being stepped on. After crossing the book bridge, Aria meets some strange girl that is narrating everything she does for some reason, and that's all she does. She shows up every now and then and will narrate what Aria is doing or has been doing. After stepping through the door past the narrator, it's time for the first chapter, Comedy. And the narrator is stalking Aria now. Okay, so now it's time to see what I can find here. One of the first things I did was talk to this one book. The book wants to juggle for Aria, but he doesn't have the balls he needs to do it. They always doubted me back in high school. I knew all the time in the juggling book club would pay off one day. So I guess we're going to have to find the balls, so let's just... Damn it! Okay, so I got stuck here for a bit and died at least a few times. I was eventually able to move on. So, going through the game, you explore all the different areas and solve puzzles along the way. Some are pretty straightforward, but the game's not entirely clear on what you need to do 100% of the time. Anyways, after a lot of walking and solving a lot of puzzles, the book is able to start juggling. I knew they could do it! Oh, and this one guy is here too and is confused as to why Aria is around, and he's planning to kill her. Well, this went from disturbing to more disturbing fast. Moving on to Chapter 2, Fairy Tales. It starts with Aria receiving an invitation to a party from an owl. I still haven't figured out how that works. I sent an owl to deliver a letter to a friend, and he still hasn't responded. The gameplay doesn't really change, but Aria does run into the guy that said he was going to kill her. They talk a bit, and then the guy just leaves. There are more puzzles after this, some of which I got stuck on, and I actually had to write stuff down in one of my notebooks because of this. There's this part where you have to put flowers in the right spot, so let's just do that so we can move on. Well, after making it to the party she was invited to, a monster starts chasing her. Luckily, the guy from earlier manages to take it down for her. Actually, he was aiming for her. What an ass. His name is Lewin, and he decides to go with her because it will give him another opportunity to kill her. Did I mention he's an ass? Chapter 3, Romance. Not much to say here other than the fact that the narrator is only narrating what Aria does and never anything Lewin does. Like the other chapters, it's just a lot of do stuff and then you'll unlock more areas to do stuff in, and you just keep going on until you finish the chapter. One part of Chapter 3 that stands out has you collect 5 fish that escape from the Little Mermaid. And there's this part where you move bookshelves with switches. It's real annoying because I couldn't really tell what switches did what until after I pressed them. Every time I thought I found a pattern, that just turned out to be wrong. I like the idea of this part, but it really could have been done better. Later, the narrator shows up again and talks about how she doesn't give a shit about whatever may happen to Aria. Frickin' bitch. The next chapter is Horror. I died even more at this part. There's this part where knives fly at you. That's fun. There's also this part where you have to memorize the books a bunny hops on, and if you get one wrong, you die. I used my notebook for this part, but my short-term memory is so bad that not even that was enough, so I had to stop recording and play back the footage so I could pause every time it landed on a book. The good thing is, once you do this, you don't have to do it again. Once that's done, more puzzles and back to the notebook. There are books in this chapter that are dead because people forgot about them. You can take control of one of them at one part to count how many butterflies are in a certain room, which is a number you need to progress. Eventually, some hints about the truth behind everything starts, and then Aria and Lewin split up for a bit. You get to control Lewin for a little while. Gameplay isn't any different though. When we get back to Aria, there's this room that Lewin told her not to go into. I decided to be good and listen, and then we're actually at the last chapter, after she gets separated from Lewin. He actually just went on ahead, so he's okay. Damn it. And you died. Going through the final chapter, Aria will run into the librarian a few times. He never really sticks around for long. In this chapter, you'll end up learning a bit more about him and his history with books. There's this one part where some books want to play a game with you, and if you lose, you won't be able to progress. I beat it my first try. After solving some more puzzles and doing a lot more walking around, Aria reaches the end and soon ends up back in her own world, where everyone else just pretends nothing ever happened. But that's just the normal ending. What about the true ending? Well, whether or not you get the true ending depends on whether or not you enter the room Lumen told Aria not to enter. After that, there's a series of questions you have to answer. If you get them all correct, you'll end up reaching the true ending. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but it was definitely a lot to take in. In the end, Aria's story was interesting, a little confusing for my liking, which was why I used a walkthrough, but still enjoyable from beginning to end. I liked the story and the characters were interesting. Like Ghost School, Aria's story also uses some free-to-use materials such as the tile sets and music. The game looks fine with them and the music picked works really well. For what it is, I think this is a decent game. Alright, I think it's time I pick the juggling book thing back up. I'll prove to everyone from high school that I'm not insane. I'm going to go to the library right now and show them all. I can't say I didn't try.